I'd like to welcome our newest sponsor, Schecter Guitars. This holiday season, go over to schecterguitars.com and see what high-quality goodies they have waiting there for you. Premium feel and unbeatable price. See why guitarists like Isaac Brock from Modest Mouse, Robert Smith from The Cure, and Ernie C. from Body Count all love Schecter Guitars. A wide variety of styles and builds with high-end components and affordable prices for touring guitarists. Built to last. Go treat yourself and try something new you've always wanted to check out. Schecter Guitars has it all. What's up, everybody? Our partners at iZotope are having a huge holiday sale. Go to iZotope.com/deals to save 30% or more on pro mixing and audio repair tools. Save over $400 on RX11 Advanced. Solve the unsolvable with their complete 44-tool audio repair and enhancement suite. That's iZotope.com/deals. These savings are for a limited time only. Don't wait. Hey, what's happening? Before we jump into the show, I wanted to see if you had any music on a hard drive. You have a band, you have a project, and you want to self-release your own music. Well, there's an easy way to do it. You can go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate and go get your music up on all the streamers. You keep 100% of your royalties, and you can get 30% off by using this code. It's a great, easy way to get your music up on the streamers and share it with your fans, your friends, your family, your mom, your dog, everybody. Everyone wants to hear it. But go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate, HYPHENATE, and send me the link. I want to hear it too. Send your mom the link. Send your dog the link. They all want to hear it too.
One of the things with Rick and kind of the art world was that he wasn't a part of it. I don't think he liked the pretension. I don't think he liked all of the just the kind of baggage that comes with the art world. I think he preferred kind of what he called lousy rock and roll.
What's happening, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning into Hyphenate. I'm your host, Randy Randall. This is our show for Thursday, January 15th. On today's show, I speak to Sohrab Habibion and Johnny Temple from Akashic Books. They're here to discuss the Rick Froberg monograph featuring Rick's visual art. It's called Plenty for All, The Art of Rick Froberg. It is available anywhere you get your fine books. You can also go to akashicbooks.com. That's AKASHIC books, BOOKS.com. You can also follow them on Instagram. What is the Instagram handle here? I think it's Akashic Books. Yeah, find them there. They are also doing a fun set of of in-store tour dates at bookstores. Let's see, tonight they will be at Rough Trade, the record shop in New York. That's January 15th. And then tomorrow they'll be in Philly at Brickbat Books. And at these events, they're going to be talking. Johnny is going to be interviewing Sohrab about making the book and about Rick. Sohrab played in the band Obits with Rick Froberg, and they will also be getting local musicians or musicians in the area to come out and play some songs from Rick's many bands. Rick was in Drive Like Jehu, Hot Snakes, Obits, Pitchfrok, and more. Okay, where do we leave off? Yeah, so tomorrow night they're in Philly, and then next week, 120, January 20th, they're in San Diego at Book Catapult, and then 121 they'll be here in Los Angeles at Book Soup, and then the next day, 122, San Francisco at City Lights, and then long drive up to Ashland, Oregon, at Bloomberry Books on January 23rd, January 24th, Portland, Oregon, Lost Avenue Books, and January 25th, Seattle, Washington at Easy Street Records. So if you live in any of these areas, New York tonight, Philly tomorrow, and then up the West Coast next week, go to one of the events, buy the book. It's a beautiful book. It's gorgeous. It looks so well put together, well thought out. You'll hear me interview Sohrab about how they went through putting the book together and the beautiful cover art and just the attention to detail. It really is a gorgeous fine art book. And really goes in depth into a lot of Rick's visual output. He worked in ink and in digital work and printmaking, flyers, engravings, etchings, just really just a wide variety of work from spanning his entire artistic output. So it's really gorgeous, really beautiful. Akashic Books did a fantastic job. And we'll get into it. We will talk about all things Plenty for All, The Art of Rick Froberg. The book is available now wherever you get books. Go buy it. Go give it as a gift. It counts. It goes. It's done by the right people for the right reasons. And look here, they even say who's going to be playing at all of these shows. Yeah, you can also follow. What do we got here? Yeah, the Akashic Books, SHIC Books on Instagram. Rick was somebody that I got to meet a handful of times. He was quiet. We were No Age was on Sub Pop around the same time that Obits was also on Sub Pop, and they were playing shows and touring and putting out records around the same time. And we definitely played a few festivals and things together. And Rick always just seemed like such a nice guy. And really, for somebody who had such a legendary DIY underground career, just really humble, really down to earth, and always seemed funny and, I don't know, really nice, but also kind of quiet and sort of kept to himself in ways too, where, I don't think, he seemed too bothered by anything that was going around him. He seemed pretty level-headed and, just going about his life, making his art the way he wanted to do it. There was a funny story I had. I think it was at one of these All Tomorrow Parties things. No Age played, Obits played, and I was doing merch, and somebody came up, and I was, I don't know, I'm probably 15 years younger, 10 years younger than Rick, but I think the road had been long, and Rick took care of himself, and I was not taking care of myself. So at some point, someone came up and started talking to me, and they said, started naming all the bands and all the times they'd seen me play, and I'm like, I don't think I'm this person they think I am. And I was talking to Dean. He's like, I don't know who this guy thinks I was, but he's kept talking about San Diego and touring and all these records, and he's like, oh, he's probably got you confused with Rick Froberg. And I just had to laugh. I was like, wow, okay, that was a very drunk British person came up to the merch booth and clearly got the wrong guy, but it was a funny laugh we had, and I ran into Rick later and told him that, and he just kind of had a smirk and a funny laugh about it. Didn't know who I was talking about. So it was a incredible person. Rick will severely be missed. We're lucky we have the records that he gave us, and now this huge monograph that the Sohrab and another good friend, Rich Jacobs, put together. Rich will also be severely missed. I mean, we talk about him a lot in this upcoming conversation. Sohrab and Rich Jacobs worked really hard and really closely to present the best to present Rick's artwork in the best way possible. And I think they really created something, truly magical and special that will stand the test of time. I think this book will be a valuable part of anybody's art collection. And if you're a fan of Rick's or any of his bands, it's a definite must have. And don't forget, go see them out on tour next week. If you're in New York tonight, or it's Philly tomorrow night, or going San Diego, LA, San Francisco, Ashland, Portland, and Seattle next week, go out and buy the book and meet Sohrab and hear some music. All right, now to our conversation. All right, Sohrab and Johnny, thank you so much for coming on Hyphenate. It's a pleasure to see you guys. Thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for having us, Randy. Really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Oh my gosh. So we are here to talk about, here I'm holding up the book for it's an audio medium, but for those on video, yes, we all have our copies of the book. Plenty for All, the art of Rick Froberg. Tell me a little bit about the book. How did this first come together? I mean, I have so many questions and so many ideas, but kind of walk me through where did this book originate from, and how was it How has it started?
Well, sadly. Well, I should say people had often spoke to Rick about putting out a book. Sadly, this did not come together until after he died. When he died, Rich Jacobs, who I'm guessing, Randy, is somebody that you know as well.
Very much so. Yeah. I mean, I was having a moment reading the introduction here before, and his untimely passing is also here. Yeah. For two great creative, people. Yeah. I didn't realize that. I'd looked through all the artwork and I was just like, I should read this before we get started today. And I'm like, oh my God, of course. Another gut punch.
Yes. And Rich was very instrumental in having Rick participate in various group shows that he did. And so Rich came to me and said, we should really do a book of Rick's art. And of course, I was 100% on board with that. And then without much really thinking about it, because Johnny and I have known each other for a long time, and I've done a lot of work for Akashic, but it was it took no effort at all to go over to Johnny and say, hey, would you be into doing this? And I think Johnny didn't hesitate for a second. So it as far as the sort of the very beginning stages of it, it was pretty quick off to the start to go. But then it was a matter of collecting all of the artwork itself. And that took a while. We reached out to various friends and bands we knew he had done work for, and just trying to see what was out there, what was available, what we could try to assemble, not really having an idea of how much was out there. And it turns out there's a lot, not just in multiples of prints and so forth, but actually a lot of very specific individual work that Rick did. So that was a really interesting and pretty involved process where Rich and I would go through, the things that we had collected and then kind of sorting them and trying to figure out how we were going to assemble the book. And then just try to figure out, organizational methods and talking about the best way to present it in terms of the material itself. And always just thinking about Rick and trying to think about what Rick would, if he were here to sort of walk us through it, how he might want to see it. And I'm not sure how well we succeeded on that end, but we tried,
Yeah, I mean it is in depth and width as well. Covering a wide range of styles of art and also time periods as well. I mean, this is not just a survey. I mean, this feels like this is a definite large biographical monograph.
Well, that was the thing. Realizing that he had done so much work, and being lucky enough to be able to get so much of it as we were able to. Then I was trying to figure out, do we present it chronologically? Do we present it by medium? Do we sort of try to figure out sort of what kind of structure would work for the best? And it seemed if we had done it chronologically, it felt like it might feel a little too jarring. So we thought maybe loosely collecting it in chapters by the mediums that he worked in. And the other thing too is that we wanted to make sure that people didn't miss the fact that he really worked in a lot of different forms. So you go through and, the first chapter is, I think, pens and pencils, and then woodcuts and prints, and then brush, ink, and his band related stuff. And then of course, he was a graphic designer. That's how he made his living. And so it was graphic design, illustration, and commercial work, and then paintings, and then drawings, which I think is something that maybe some people might be familiar with outside of his band stuff, maybe familiar with some of his drawings and some of his ink work. And then, later he got into doing a lot of digital work. So we want to make sure to include that because, it shares a lot stylistically with a certain other period of his work, but it's interesting to see because it's digital, it's really, really clean. And so it's an interesting sort of kind of window into that side of Rick's work. And then there was an unpublished book that we found when we were gathering all those things. Basically at the height of COVID, he was assembling a book that he actually sent to a printer to get a quote for, and nothing ever came of it. So we thought this is a perfect place to include it. And Rich and I had spent a lot of time trying to figure out what size we thought the book should be, because you flip through art books and sometimes they're square, sometimes, they're taller, sometimes they're more rectangular or whatever. And so we saw his, in his request for the printer, he had specified what size he had wanted that book of his. And so we thought, well, that answers that question. So we sort of honored his vision in that regard. And wow. And then the last stuff is really the watercolors, which is kind of the last stuff that he was working on when he died.
Wow. I mean, it's incredible and presented with so much love and so much care. I mean, Johnny, with a project like this, when Sohrab comes to you, with Rich Jacobs, what were they bringing to you? How do you receive something like this? What was your familiarity with Rick and musically and artistically over the time? I mean, how did this project find you as a publisher?
I was hoping that they were going to come to me because I caught wind of the idea as it caught wind, and I remember at the memorial, the New York memorial after Rick died, that it was just such a, because of the creative community that he lived in. Sohrab, Rich, Jacobs, Gabe Voiles, Britt, the world that he lived in. It was inevitable. It feels completely inevitable that someone was going to be like, there should be a book. And I, in fact, saw those conversations happening there, and I got brought into the conversation. And then at that memorial, and then later I was hoping like, well, I really, really hope that they make this book, and I hope that I get to be the one to publish it. I also have an editorial team, so I don't make unilateral decisions. So I did have to, when Sohrab and Rich did come to me, I had to, talk it through with my team and get them to approve as well. They are not, I'm a musician. With a punk rock background. I knew Rick. Rick wasn't, one of my closest friends, but he was definitely a friend. I didn't know him nearly as well as Sohrab and Rich and others. But I had hung out with him. I talked about books a lot with him. I had even talked to him, do you have a book in you? This was pre-pandemic. And so I was smitten with the whole idea as a way. It's interesting because it's not just, what's interesting to me about this book is that it's not simply a way to honor Rick. That's kind of not really what it's about. It's a beautiful book of art is what it is. And obviously a lot of people are buying it and super enthusiastic about it. The feedback I'm getting is incredible. So Rob, people are just pouring on how well you guys made this beautiful, beautiful book. So yeah, I'm happy to be along for the ride, but I wasn't creatively involved. A couple times, maybe Sohrab came to me with a question or two, but I wasn't so involved in the shaping of this. That's why I'm just so amazed at how just physically beautiful it is. Little touches. I know I'm kind of jumping in here.
Oh yeah, no.
Design touches that Sohrab, I don't know if it was you specifically who came up with it. I think it is you, but the cover has this beautiful cloth, blue cloth wraparound with this bright, very colorful, sort of glossy. And then on this more descriptive flap here, this is a matte finish. And that kind of three different finishes could go horribly awry. And it is just so incredibly beautiful. And it's like a gift to Rick too.
Yeah.
Well, and that was the thing is I got pretty nerded out on the cover, but because I just thought it was a great way to showcase Rick loved the process of making stuff, so for example, he and I were in the Obits together. And one of the things that was really nice is he would come up with these great designs for the records. And then he would go to Sub Pop and say, hey, can we do a die cut? Can we do an emboss? Can we do these? Because he really loved those extra little elements, to make a package more physical and just to make it feel special. And so I wanted to make sure with the cover, if we could do something like that. And I do think that having the three finishes. So with Johnny, what he was saying about this not really honoring Rick, I agree with that. I think this book is less about necessarily honoring Rick than about really collecting his work and trying to get it seen by as many people as possible. I think one of the nice things is, in the world that he existed in, he did well as a musician, again, within that sphere. And so a lot of people saw his artwork on his band's record covers. And through that, maybe saw his work for other bands or some of the other maybe individual ink prints that he had done. But I think I would be really hard pressed to find somebody who necessarily understood how much different work Rick made in so many different mediums. I mean, Rich and I feel like we're two very close friends of Rick's, and we were surprised by how much stuff there was and how much ground it covered. And Rich really, his goal with this book was not only for it to come out and be a beautiful piece, but also the idea that maybe it's a way to get his art further out into the world beyond the Hot Snakes, Jehu fans and Froberg curious, but to get it into the eyes and hands of people who wouldn't otherwise necessarily be familiar with him. Because I do think his art is that tremendous, that deep, that just important. It's a cultural contribution that I think deserves wider recognition.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting when you say, it feels like a gift for the fans or a gift for the world, like just like you say, the intricacy of the matte finishes and the things, and then just the thought and care that's gone into the work. It's not so much that it's a celebration of Rick, but it's more of a celebration for the fans. It feels like it's like a thing like here, we're giving this to you. This is a gift to you as fans who maybe didn't know all these other sides of Rick. There's obviously, he's a multifaceted artist, and there's lots of different ways people could have been exposed to his art and his creativity, but to see this all kind of collected, at least for the visual art, was a real kind of treat. And it was like, whoa, there's so much more. It's like seeing, discovering something, that you didn't know there was so much in this box, in this one box, and it's presented in such a way. It's almost like a little jewel case in that kind of way. Like, wow, you think you know someone, but look at this and look at there. And I mean, and as somebody, I've spent a lot of Sub Pop's art budget on fancy packaging as well. And so
That's right. The no age stuff always look great. Yeah.
I could appreciate that coming from a physical media design perspective. I mean, Johnny, good on you. It's no small, when you see the spot varnish and the and the matte and everything else, I know like that doesn't come cheap, but for believing in the project, I mean, that's really, it deserves its recognition. It's one thing to design it. It's another thing for someone to pay for it and actually manufacture it and ship it and get it out there. That's where, there's a real,
I think we felt that it's the first thing you see. It's the first thing you see, and the first thing that you physically will, for your first engagement with the book. And so I'm really so happy that Johnny and the folks at Akashic were willing to go with the little extras, because I do think it makes a difference.
It does. When you think about, the aging punk rock fans that we all are part of the community of, and you get to see these things as we go back and look at some of our community and heroes and influences and stuff. And what, when you put something up on that bookshelf, we were talking before the mics were running, it's like, this is something that takes up room. These records, every record that goes on that record shelf is not just something you got at a show. It's a choice at this age to put something in your collection. This is
absolutely.
And to put in boxes and move apartments, for years and years. It's like, what it means to have a spot on that shelf. And
yeah, I'm hoping that this book is one that, when others get culled out of the collection, this one stays.
It's great. Yeah, no, and I was saying too, I've been showing it off. I've been showing it off to lots of friends, and they were saying, it was a great Christmas gift, for a lot of people. Like, oh my gosh, I know my husband or my wife was such a big fan that it was a great thing to be able to get. So I mean, yeah, just the packaging, the release of all of that. I mean, Rick as an artist, where. I know so much of him, through his music, and then the art would always seem like, oh, did you know Rick did this? Did you know Rick did that? And then it's kind of the offhanded thing someone would say, like as a flyer or a record cover, and you go, oh, okay, but it was hard to kind of wrap your whole sort of head around that as, what does that mean? What was his opinion of that side of him? And you talk about, if he were to make a book, do you have a sense of what his point of view was on that and how he wanted to present his art? I mean, obviously there's an introduction by Rich Jacobs, and then there's a sweet kind of self-effacing biography that he wrote. How can you sort of reflect on that? Are you able to kind of speak to what Rick's point of view on his artwork versus his music side, and what would he have thought of a book like this, or what kind of book would he want to do?
Well, I know, he was always really self-effacing, as you said in that one-page bio that he wrote. I mean, it's also, he was really, really funny. But I think that one of the things with Rick and kind of the art world was that he wasn't a part of it. I don't think he liked the pretension. I don't think he liked all of the just the kind of baggage that comes with the art world. I think he preferred kind of what he called lousy rock and roll. You know, he preferred just the punk rock kind of vibe. And so I think for him, I think the fear of doing, maybe fear is not the right word, but the concern about doing an art book, and if it puts him out into the world and into an environment that he has no interest in participating in. And so in some ways, you know, being able to do this without him here bypasses that. We can do it on his behalf because it deserves to be out there, but he doesn't have to worry about any of the dealing with any of the nonsense that he wouldn't want to be involved in. But I think that as far as sort of his point of view, one of the things was that I think he really considered himself a graphic designer. You know, he didn't consider himself a fine artist. And I think that's because he sort of believed in the value of doing the work itself. And so anybody could hire him. I actually I used to have a job where I would do CD packaging for this manufacturer in California, and I would just get the most random albums to have to design covers for. And I use it as an excuse to get various friends of mine to do illustrations or photographs or whatever for. And once I went to Rick and I was like, "Hey man, I have a really weird job. Would you be up for it? You know, there's a little bit of money involved." And he's like, sure, tell me what it is. And so I went to the artist and the singer, and I asked him what his vision of the cover was. And he sent me the most bizarre, abstract paragraph of text. And I just sent it to Rick. I was like, "Hey man, I don't know if this means anything to you or not." And he looked at it and he read it and he was like, "This is great. I will." And it was, he literally painted, with gouache, these two beautiful front and back album covers for this completely random guy in New Jersey. And he took it seriously, and he took what the guy wanted really seriously. And the guy was blown away and ended up actually buying the original paintings from Rick in the end as well. But, so I think that for Rick, it was like doing the work, it was just sitting down and getting it done and, paying for it or whatever. So I don't know. He had a really, he put the time in.
That's incredible. The one thing I always thought about Rick's work is, I mean, obviously he comes from, this punk rock background musically and the flyer artwork and stuff. And specifically that kind of, 90s, late 80s, 90s San Diego punk aesthetic, where there was almost like a retro kind of throwback gas station, sort of 50s sort of vibe. But he did it in such a way that added an element of surrealism or a playfulness or this I don't know quite how to say it. It was almost like elevated in some way versus this kind of Ed Hardy bedazzled dragon flash tattoo
definitely
artwork.
Not the Ed Hardy.
That maybe but maybe some of his contemporaries,
but I know what you mean.
But that was the downhill version would slope into that world where he took it to this whole other kind of like high art, space.
I mean, honestly, I feel like it's I feel like with some of the stuff Rick did, it was almost like psychedelic Norman Rockwell or something. It was like it has this pristine sort of the rendering is just immaculate, and yet, as you said, it has this surreal quality to it, or this kind of bizarre, otherworldly dream state element to it. And I think part of that too is just it was a way for him to be a critic of art and of whatever it was that he was doing by insinuating this point of view that was, often cynical is not the right word. He was not cynical, but he was highly suspect.
Critical. In a way, yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that element of surreality with like this incredible craftsmanship thing, and you see it actually in his etchings as well, where just like these, horses on their hind legs, snarling at each other, and it's like this crazy nightmarish cartoon, but rendered exquisitely,
Yeah, I think it definitely, sort of elevates the whole idea past, figurative art, or just sort of alliterative, here's something that's going to kind of narratively explain visually what the music is doing or what you're seeing, what the author is saying.
There's a level of abstraction that he would bring, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. And
but the thing is, like, one of the things that I think he was always really concerned about was being too on the nose with something too obvious. I mean, I think for example, on the first Obits record, lyrics are included. After that, he stopped wanting lyrics printed, not because he didn't like his lyrics. I think he was proud of what he wrote and sang, but he wanted to leave a little bit of room for maybe misinterpretation or misunderstanding or something where the person who would be experiencing it could bring their own thing to the interaction as well. And I think similarly with his visual art, there's spaces in there that don't make sense, and so you as a viewer can intuit what you want or bring to it what you want.
Yeah, it's such I don't know, democratic, I guess, is maybe isn't the right word, but I mean, but even the title, Plenty for All, there's this sort of abundance of community mindedness. I mean, can you sort of speak to that, or how we sort of, I feel like it's mentioned in there. Rich Jacob was also really great about drawing in the community and the friend group around his artworks and his shows. I mean, was Rick of that same type of mindset, or where does the title come from?
Well, it's a Hot Snakes song, "Plenty for All," okay. And I think, I mean, he being like you of California origin, I think toyed around a lot with the idea sort of what California is, both as a place and as a sort of conceit of what it was. People traveled west, right? They went to California. It was the place to seek, to find gold, and Hollywood, and in various stages of American history, there's California has been this land of the plenty, and so I think that he toyed with that idea, like plenty for all, or is there? Right.
The critical eye to it as well, with this sort of the selling of the dream,
the promise versus the delivery,
with a winking eye towards it always,
exactly
the nose. This is something maybe Johnny, you can sort of chime in on this one as well. One theme that I've noticed in doing this podcast now for the last 3 years. I mean, my obsession with all things, sort of punk and the generation before me and my influences, and kind of, this is a bit of I get to go down my own rabbit hole of my own artistic and creative obsessions, cultural obsessions, is things center around Gen X in this sort of age. And what I've noticed, and I think this really kind of came to terms with me as I was investigating that, this Pavement sort of meta narrative doc that came out. And I was really fascinated with how Gen X is dealing with nostalgia, or how Gen X is aging in a way that is so different than previous generations. You know what I mean? Where I think you can have a book like this, which is a retrospective and obviously tragically posthumous retrospective, but as a publisher and as someone who kind of, looks towards this generation and with this eye, I mean, how do you see this happening? What is the Gen X looking back attitude, and how do you characterize that? Because I think it is done. I mean, this is the generation that didn't care about anything. This is or not necessarily nihilism, but it was always with a wink and a nudge and a yeah right. We weren't going to survive the 80s, but yet here we are in 2026, and looking back on some of the most radical art and statements by a punk rock generation. I mean, how do you see that? How do you, as a publisher?
I'm not sure that I had even noticed or pinpointed this dynamic that you're talking about. Or I also am not sure that it's specific to our generation. I think, to me, it feels like it would be more related to your age rather than your generation or something. But on the other hand, I haven't thought about it much. And so probably there is absolutely a generational aspect to this. It does. I publish a number of, I can't speak towards publishing in general because I can only speak towards what I do in my company. So I definitely can't speak to any kind of theme in publishing, but in terms of I mean, I publish, I guess, a lot of musicians and artists, and some of them are looking back, and at the good and the important work that they did. There's something very nice about looking back, and like with punk rock, for example, seeing what an incredible thing that was built. But coming from Washington, D.C., people in D.C. get a little allergic to nostalgia. And so, you know, and the line, and I believe this is always about is what you're doing now that is really like the main focus and the main and the main interest. So I guess I have conflicting feelings about that, but I would like to think that I'm not indulging in too much nostalgia.
No, fair enough. It's something I think that's struck me as something that I never quite, again, I feel of the same sort of idea of like, oh, I don't want to be nostalgic. It was never a better time, or it was just a different time, or even exalting of a certain thing. Yet I just feel like it happens. It happens to all of us in one way or another. You can't help but look back or be asked about, these, even the punk rock. I forget the title of what it was, but I know there was a big museum show in DC that
I would posit that Generation X's nostalgia does not hold a candle to baby.
Oh no, not at all.
Nostalgia.
Absolutely no. I think they started doing it while they were still living it. I mean, they were the most well documented generation, and they were nostalgic for it. The second after, the second Woodstock was over with, they were mythologizing Woodstock. It was, the film came out as it was happening. They couldn't write about themselves fast enough.
I'd like to think that we're still living it.
Yeah, well, but that's the idea. However, we find ourselves in these moments of reflection, I suppose, and it's the question of not how do we want to be remembered, but what does our own self-reflection say about us as a generation, I suppose, is more what it is. And I think, you've sort of said it, it's living in the moment. Tell me a little bit about Rick, for people who aren't familiar with Rick, like sort of, tell me a little bit about him as an artist, as a musician, as a band partner, as a friend.
So in terms of meeting Rick, I first met him when a mutual friend of ours took me to an art show of his, and I did not know he was a musician. I just knew that it was a friend of a friend's art. And I saw the work and was just completely blown away. I ended up buying a painting, which this is when I first moved to New York and I could barely scrape 2 dimes together. So the fact that I wanted to buy a piece of art said a lot as to how much I really loved the work. And in fact, I didn't have enough money to buy it outright. So I set up a little payment plan with Rick. And in the course of the payment plan, whatever it was, I can't remember, we got to hang out a bunch and we really hit it off, became friends, talked about music, talked about art, just hung out. And then I started helping him. It was when the first Hot Snakes record came out, and I helped him assemble the artwork for that. He had done the work, but he didn't know how to really get it together for the printer. And since that was something that he knew that I knew how to do, he came over to my place with the art. And so he and I started working more closely, doing that kind of stuff. And then fast forward a little bit, we were in Obits together, and that was for about 10 years. And so over that period of time, we traveled a lot together, spent a lot of time together in practice rooms and hotel rooms and on people's floors and so forth, and really just became very, very close. And so, and that just gave me a deeper appreciation of not just him as a person, but just to see where his ideas for his music and his lyrics and his artwork came from. And he was just always a really curious person. And I know that, I meet people sometimes who ask me if he was kind of gruff or something. And I think he could seem that way. He could seem a little gruff, but he really wasn't. He was an incredibly warm and generous and funny person, and truly liked to have a good time. And I think that was actually one of the things that I remember having a conversation with him about, which is that it was hard for him to do his visual art because it was very lonely. It was just him by himself in a space. Whereas being in a band is fun. You get to hang out with your friends and drink beers and, make loud sounds. And I think that of the two, he preferred that kind of camaraderie of being able to be in a band. But obviously the visual art was very important to him. And so he had to, make time for it. What blew me away was seeing, as I said in the beginning, just how much work he had done and trying to figure out when he was doing it. Because, we spent a lot of time together and he wasn't doing it when we were together. So I just, I couldn't figure out like how many more hours in the day was he squeezing out, But yeah, he was a really, really, truly lovely, warm, and curious person. And I think his curiosity really comes through in his artwork because I think he loved things that were beautiful. He loved natural beauty. He loved, the contours of an animal. Like one of the things in going through the various materials that we'd collected was I had access to his hard drive. And so, he had a folder on there that were just pictures of animals he had pulled from the internet. And he just, and you can see it in his work, just like the way he renders the musculature of a horse, the way he renders the mane of a horse, the way he renders the teeth and gums of a dog. I mean, there's monkeys, there's elephants, there's hippopotamus, or hippopotami.
Yeah.
It's like he really he just loved the beauty of the natural world, but also the natural world is cruel. The natural world is not always generous to its neighbor, and so you see that in his work too. You see just that crazy, wild, kind of raw element of the natural world coming through in his work, which I think is really amazing.
It's incredible. I mean, did he ever talk about any particular influences, or artistic or creative or otherwise? I mean, was there a lineage he found himself sort of going down?
I mean, obviously, I would say from the punk rock world, the most obvious would be like Raymond Pettibon, but he also was really into like 50s cartoons and like Tex Avery and all these, like he loved that era of cartoons. And he was a big Goya fan. He would go to the museums and he would, with a notebook, and he would actually just sit there and reproduce the masters, just sitting on a bench for an afternoon and drawing, a Vermeer or, that's how he taught himself. I mean, he never went to art school, but he did take art classes. So for example, in the book, there's one area where, I don't know if you had a chance to see this, Randy, but there's a series of paintings. They're little squares and they're all portraits, and he grades himself. And so there's one where he gives himself a C+. So he was really, really funny. But and you can see it in the pencil section. I want to make sure to include, there's a couple of drawings that are portraits. There's one of a woman and there's one of a man with this really like voluptuous mustache and beard. And just the way he drew those with such exquisite detail, it's remarkable. I mean, truly, like he had an ability that was just unbelievable. And that's why I think if this book can get out beyond the Froberg fans, out into the greater world, I think it would be really, really wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to touch on Rich Jacobs a little bit too, who we all, are still in the process of mourning his passing. What was the relationship between Rich and Rick? What was that like as you observed it?
They were very good friends, and Rich knew Rick from California, and I think Rich was roommates with Paul from Blackheart Procession out in San Diego. So they went back a really, really long time. And then when Rich started curating shows, I don't know how many of Rich's shows that he put together Rick was in, but quite a few of them. And I think that was a really nice thing for Rich to have his friends involved, and one of them being Rick, but also to get Rick's work again out in the world in a way that Rick himself was not going to do. And I know that Rick appreciated that and appreciated being included in those group shows. So he and Rick and Rich, and actually I met Rich at Rick's house at a backyard barbecue. So if it were not for Rick, I don't know that I would have known Rich when I did.
It all sort of comes full circle. Well, yeah. Well, it's incredible. I mean, I feel like I could talk about this, for 10 more hours. You guys have been very generous with your time and all tech considerations pending. Let's help get the word out. Where can people buy the book? What's the best place for them to buy it? And how can they follow, the everything happening or all the events going on around the book?
The book is available anywhere books are sold. If you buy it directly from the Akashic Books website, akashicbooks.com, you also have the option of buying this limited edition print, and also comes with this limited edition fanzine that Sohrab and some others put together, this sort of like special bonus package at a much higher price. Or you can just buy the book, and you can buy just the book from really anywhere. Not to say every bookstore will have it, but you can order it through any bookstore if you have a favorite bookstore, favorite independent bookstore. Also available at the big ones. And the events, we're doing events coming up in the East Coast in Philadelphia, New York, and Boston, and on the West Coast, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Ashland, Oregon, Portland, and Seattle, which we're really looking forward to. And the events will be a two-part event, a conversation where I basically interview Sohrab and other people, musicians that were part, in Rick's life, about talking about Rick and his artwork, and then we all get together with various musical instruments and play a selection of around six songs from mostly from bands that from Rick's bands. And every city has different musicians joining us. It'll be me and Sohrab. I play bass guitar, so I get to kind of glom on to the traveling circus. Sohrab plays guitar. Alexis Fleissig from Girls Against Boys and Soulside and Bellini and other bands is playing drums. And then we will have guest vocalists singing the songs in every city, as well as a few people joining us on guitar. This is all coming up in the next couple of weeks, and you can find information about this at akashicbooks.com, or the social media. A lot of the sort of Rick Froberg affiliated social media, our friends. People have been helping us spread the word, including the good people at Sub Pop Records, and yeah,
fantastic.
They should be really fun. We did two of these events before the new year, and they were really, really fun. And I think the people who came really, really, really enjoyed it. There was a very good spirit around this.
Oh, I bet. Sounds
Randy,
fun.
if you want to join it at Book Soup, let us know.
I'll be there. I'll definitely. I mean, I'll definitely be there. I want to see
like singing Spikes to You.
Oh, I don't know if you don't have anybody better. I mean, I don't want to bring them.
All right, we'll take this conversation offline.
Yeah. Well, it's fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And what's the handle? What's the social handle for Akashic book?
At Akashic Books.
Okay, perfect. So that's the best thing to follow, and that'll get you the links to get you where you can buy the book direct and see all of the upcoming things. There'll be a link in the bio here. And well, thank you both so much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. And
yeah, thanks a lot,
Randy. Thank you very much. Sorry, I was glitching on the headphones.
No worries. There was
a shark over your shoulder.
That's the lead singer. That's the guy who sings there. I have a microphone set up for him. This is the practice space. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Yes, how awesome was that? Sorry, there were a few technical glitches and bounces. I think Sohrab's microphone headphones kept cutting out and bouncing around, so we ended up switching formats there halfway through. You might have heard a little bit of a change in the vocal quality. But I think we got through it. We did it. It's always fun doing an interview while the technical glitches are happening all around you. But it's such an incredible book, and I really want everyone to go out and buy it. You can go to akashicbooks.com. It's akashicbooks.com, and you can follow the same Akashic Books on Instagram to see all of the great tour dates they have coming up. Like I said on the top, New York tonight, Philly tomorrow, San Diego on the 20th, LA on the 21st, San Francisco on the 22nd, Ashland on the 23rd, Portland on the 24th, and Seattle on the 25th. All right, West Coast, go out there, buy the Rick Froberg book, Plenty for All, The Art of Rick Froberg by Akashic Books. Sohrab and Johnny will be at all these great bookstores, record stores, and talking about the book and playing some songs. So if this is up your alley or up your friend's alley, go bring them to the show, or you go to the show, go tell your friends, and go check it out. Thank you, Sohrab and Johnny, for coming on. I appreciate it. If you want to get in touch with me here at the show, I am at Hyphenate halftime@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram at Randy S. Randall, and talk to me about Gen X nostalgia. That should be my new, I should make t-shirts that say that. The hyphenate t-shirts. Talk to me about my Gen X nostalgia. I feel like there was a conversation to be had there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my too looking back is this my own existential crisis that I'm facing down the barrel of my own slowly decaying body. Or are we all going through this? Or, can you not help but feel that things were different or better, or not such a dumpster fire? Is that the reason to look back? Is that why I'm looking back? Because things are so fucked now? Or, I don't know. Who is to say? I would like to have a conversation with you about it, though. So write me, hyphenatehalftime@gmail.com, or find me on the Instagrams at Randy S. Randall, and we'll keep talking about it. But that's going to do it for today. I will see everybody on Monday with the Halftime Spectacular, where I'll speak to Aaron Farley about all things getting old and cranky. All right. See you Monday. Have a good weekend. Go buy some books.
I'm not sure that I had even noticed or pinpointed this dynamic that you're talking about.